Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to Coho Software's BMC Trackit Administration webinar. And we are going to be looking at sessions A and B this morning and this afternoon. My name is Alejandro and I have been a Trackit consultant, implementer, and certified administrator for quite a few years now. I have done quite a few Trackit implementations in many customers in the US, in the Caribbean, in South America. So I can confidently say that I'm very familiar with Trackit and that this is one software that I know really well and I really like. Trackit is a piece of software. It's, as you know, an all-in-one help desk software. I find it very versatile and I think it is incredibly powerful and easy to use, particularly for its cost. There are certainly more powerful and more configurable pieces of software out in the market, but few are as user-friendly and configurable as Trackit. The way we're going to be working this morning is I'm going to be looking through a few slides that in our presentation first, where we're going to be looking at each one of the elements that we're going to be discussing, and then we are going to be working hands-on in the demonstration itself. At any point, feel free to use the questions box in your webinar box to ask questions, and if we can, we'll stop and answer the question right away, or we'll type an answer for you. In any event, we are going to make sure to leave a time at the end of the session for questions and answers. So do ask your questions through the question box, and we will answer them either right away if we can, or as at the end of each session we will have a questions and answer session, so that we can look in detail at anything that might not have been clear or that you would like to understand in more depth. So for session A, for this morning, we're going to be looking at the configuration of Trackit. We're going to be concentrated on the administration console, and it's going to be more of an overview. There's going to be a detailed tour of the administration console and some of the elements in the last session, but we're going to be looking at an overview. We're going to be looking at where the administration options are configured, the help desk options, the solutions and purchasing, and we are going to be looking also at the directory importer. How to select the server, how to import technicians and users, signing licenses, how to map the options, and automating the import schedule. So that's what we have scheduled for this morning. This afternoon, we're going to be looking at security policies and workflow automation. So let's get started with what we have scheduled for this morning. And essentially, this is what we're going to be looking. We're going to be looking at all the administration console and what are the things that you configure in there. But we are not going to stop in any high degree of detail on any of the elements. We're going to be covering some of those elements in greater detail later on in further sessions, and then on the last session we're going to be going in greater detail in some of these elements. So essentially we're going to be looking at the administration, where you do all the language and things, and we're going to be looking at the help desk area, particularly the email and the work order events related to email. We're going to be looking at what solutions are all about, although we are not going to go into any detail about solutions. We're going to be looking at what you can do with purchasing in the administration console, and the directory importer, as we said. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at that in our live environment. And here we go. This is our live Trackit. And before we go into the administration console itself, I'm going to do a quick overview for those of you who are new or not that familiar with Trackit as to what we see when we enter Trackit for the first time. Obviously, this is the administrator's view. So we have access to everything. We can see all the elements. Using the security policies, you can restrict what each technician is able to see in Trackit. So this is the view that you get when you first open Trackit as an administrator, and this is the Trackit client component. There is also a Trackit web component that we can look at a later point. But right now we're going to concentrate on the client. So when we first open Trackit, we have a navigation menu on the top, as we expect from most applications, and we have a navigation menu on the upper left corner that is that changes according to context. It's a contextual menu. And then on the lower left side, we have the main tabs for each one of the modules or main components for Trackit. And we're going to be looking at each one of those as we go along. There are certain elements in the of the modules that we do not expect to cover in great detail, but if you would like to know more about them after we have gone through the sessions, make sure that you ask what you need to know about them if we haven't covered it, and we will happily talk to you about them and try to show you what you need to see. In the middle size, you have two dashboard views, two graphical views of with some information about Trackit, and then you have some information about the asset component, and then you have an announcement box. On the right side, you have a getting started menu that is very useful when you are implementing Trackit for the first time, when you have just installed it and you're not really sure what to do or how to proceed. Then this is a great way to get started with Trackit. So it has a learning center where it shows you some of the most important links to what you can do to learn about Trackit, a quick start area where you can trigger the configuration wizard to get started automatically with a wizard that will show you how to fill in all the main fields in Trackit, and access to the administration console. So you can access the administration console from this point if you wish, or from the home page you can go to the administration console, and I believe that from this menu here you can also go to the administration console here. Sorry, it's tools, not go. Okay. There you can also get tutorials on how to set up the technician client, users and technicians, set up the inventory, set up the help desk, and set up purchasing. So Trackit makes it easy for you to get started if you haven't had experience with this software. However, since we're going to be looking at everything in more or in greater or lesser detail, I'm going to close that so we have more space to actually look at things in Trackit. So just a quick overview of what we have in terms of the graphical interface. We have two areas with graphs where we can choose which kind of graph we want to see. The choices that we have on both windows are exactly the same, so we cannot change the elements that are available in each one of the windows, and we cannot do a whole lot of customizing with those graphs, but we can choose which one we can see and we would like to see on each side. So like we can see SLA violations in here, for example, where we're looking at work orders on the other side, and SLA fulfillment, for example. And the one thing that we can do with these graphs is we can right click on them, and then we can show certain elements of the graph We can rotate the graph, okay, or we can print that graph. On the lower left quadrant, we have information about the asset management, how many assets have been discovered, how many assets have been audited recently, and through the preferences we can add or remove some of the elements we can see in that box. In the announcements box, we can do precisely that. We can type an announcement such as email server will be down on Saturday for maintenance. We can make this visible in the self-service for our self-service users. And if we don't click on that, it's only going to be visible to other technicians. And then we can set an expiration date and time for our message here. So after that time, it's going to disappear. And we can come in and edit it at any time, or we can add more announcements for users and technicians to see. So that's it for the quadrant side of the software. And then, as I said, the upper left menu is contextual, so it depends on which one of the modules we select. So if we select the help desk module, we'll see a set of different options. Okay, just did something a little bit odd there, Trackit, but there we go. We can select solutions. We can select the software license module, and so on and so forth. As you see, when we select each one of the modules, the upper left side menu changes, and the view in the middle also changes according to what we have selected. So the principle is that you are always going to have in the middle what you need to do the work that pertains that particular module or section of Trackit, and then you have all the elements that you need to access for the work that you need to do. What you have available on the upper left menu also depends on what are your permissions in the security policies. So if you don't have access to certain elements, you won't see those elements in the menu in there, and you won't be able to do anything with them, obviously. So we will be touching into some of the various elements that we can see and manipulate in Trackit as we go along. But we're going to go now back and jump into what we have scheduled for today. So we're going to go to the home page and select the administration console. As I said, we could also go to tools and select the administration console. And these menus here, by the way, are also contextual. So if I am also in the home page, there are certain things that I see in here and here. If I'm on help desk, then again these menus change, right? So now I have different elements available. I can also, while I'm here, I can also customize this lower bar in here and determine whether what are the types of searches that I have available, and what are the elements that I want to see there in my toolbar. Okay, so that can be modified as well. Anyway, going back to where we were, they won't wander away anymore. We're going to go to the administration console, and we're going to take a look at the different elements that we have in here. Are there any questions so far?